Well, I mean, it's a gamble whenever you have a big national trial like this Karrmelo Anthony verdict that happened yesterday in Frisco, Texas, and you come out with a podcast headline that says, there won't be riots this time, like I just wrote. You don't know. But I don't think it's going to happen this time. Why would that be? Because the media is not calling for it. Not much different than what we want to look back 6 years ago, pre-George Floyd riots. You might remember that. And you can fact check me on this all you want. Look back at some of the video. Look back at some of the CNN clips. Before the riots happened, you had CNN and other mainstream networks, of course, but CNN in that case was the worst, saying, we're expecting widespread riots. Oh, are you? What do you have, like inside information, or are you just kind of like planting the seed for that? I think it's different this time. Anyway, we'll get into it. You don't even have to be that familiar with the facts of this particular case to understand that. We'll get into it. Thanks for finding me. I appreciate you. Business first. Thanks for finding the Wicked Radio live stream podcast on X, YouTube, Facebook, and then the replay there. We're live 8 a.m. Eastern time, Monday through Friday. But the audio podcast listeners, you can listen whenever you want, whatever platform you like. Let's get the verdict yesterday of some breaking news. It did not take long, and that's relevant to this case. The jury came back almost right away. It was unanimous. And even some of the witnesses, and we'll get into this in a second, completely changed their story on the stand for the case. This was clear-cut and obvious. Anyway, here's the announcement. Breaking news everywhere yesterday, even if you weren't there for it live. And then the reaction.
Pretty breaking news to give you right now. The jury has sentenced Karrmelo Anthony to 35 years behind bars after finding him guilty of murder. I'm told that he is eligible for parole after he serves half his time. The jury had the option to give him as much as 99 years behind bars. But again, they have chosen to give him 35 years. And I do want to mention, we showed you those protests, a bunch of supporters out here.
More on the protests in a second. Let's get background to the case because we're all have busy lives and we're trying to, just be good, honest, decent citizens. Well, this was a lot different than was reported leading up to this. And here's why I think the media is not behind this, calling for and just hoping for it, because this is big ratings for them, right? You know it is. Fox 2, let's be honest, big ratings if they had widespread protests. Now, they did outside the courtroom, outside the courthouse in Frisco, Texas, as you'll hear here in a second. Not in other cities. Not yet, anyway. And I may be wrong on that. I don't think it's going to happen, even though many had predicted would happen. Here's some background from the case. Karrmelo Anthony, who's now going to be spending most of his life, if not the rest of his life, in jail, entered the Memorial High School tent for shelter at a track meet. Now, this was last year. Stabbing occurred where he, essentially, according to the jury, killed Austin Metcalf. Happens to be white. Karrmelo Anthony is black. This made it all about race, even though it shouldn't be. Even though we should be at a point in time in our society we look past all this stuff. No, it became all about race, which we'll get into again in a second. Happened around 10 a.m. I had forgotten that this was a morning incident as well. It was a track meet, track and field meet involving multiple schools. Heavy rain and thunderstorms delayed events. Anthony goes into one of the tents from to a different high school. The witnesses had said, and this came up in the trial too, that he was asked multiple times to leave. That's according to Austin Metcalf's twin brother as well. This also came out in the trial that they knew about this Karrmelo Anthony kid's background. They knew of him, knew about him, pretty unstable. Asked him to leave. That's what they had said. He didn't, refused to leave. According to the police reports and what came out of the trial, Austin Metcalf, who eventually died, confronted him, asked him to leave. According to police reports, Karrmelo said something to the effect of, touch me and see what happens, reached into his backpack. I don't need to get into the gory details, but he stabbed Austin Metcalf to death, died right there in the scene. It's a horrific, horrific, horrific thing. Almost immediately, of course, this became something about, well, they're charging a black kid who was confronted and attacked in a tent by a bunch of white football students, well-to-do. That was the original report from his family, defense team, everybody, right? Those arguments fell apart almost immediately in this trial when it finally just happened over the past couple of weeks. Almost immediately. Witnesses turned. One of the witnesses for the defense had said that Karrmelo Anthony was surrounded and was about to be beaten up before he stabbed in self-defense. He even flipped on that. That wasn't the case at all. Nothing at all. And of course, as you know, and this is such a shame of the whole matter, it became a black versus white thing. Reaction to the trial? As soon as it was announced outside in Frisco, Texas, you can imagine. Now, some of the individual interviews with these protesters that said that, a black kid can't get any justice in this country. They can't do this. They can't do that. No regard. I watched a lot of these witnesses. No regard whatsoever. And none of them that I saw anyway, maybe you saw something different, had said, at wrapping up their sentence and their protests by saying, but it sure is a shame that anybody died in this case. I heard none of that. None. This just immediately became we can't let a black kid in our community go to jail, even though the evidence was crystal clear. This evidence, this jury came out almost immediately, unanimously, said all of the evidence points to this, that he murdered this other white kid when it could have just, at worst, been a fist fight. Who brings a knife to a track meet tent? Anyway, well, that wasn't enough. That wasn't enough here, and then we'll hear some of these witnesses now, and then we'll get into the media reaction of this entire thing and how that fell apart because of some of the testimony that fell apart in the jury. Here we go. Here's a first witness.
Why do we have to care anymore? Why are we even here? To be honest, why are we here? What are we here for? Because if we take up for ourselves, we go to jail. If we don't, we die. So it's a catch-22 in this situation. What do you want us to do? What do you want us to do at this point? What? I'm lost for it. I don't know what to do. I got 5 boys. I don't know what. I ain't got nothing to tell them no more.
You could start with don't bring knives to track meets. I mean, you could start there. And my mistake, I called her a witness. She was a protester outside the scene there. But that's the problem. That sums it up all right there. Of all the people that found a camera and all the people, and it was, every single network was there covering this thing from start to finish for the past 2 weeks for this. All during deliberations, all during testimony, all covering all this entire thing. And the similar statements time and time again. Well, what are we supposed to do? Does it have to lead to murder every single time? Because the very same jury from your community completely disagreed with anything. But you take that lady for a second, right? And she sums up all of this entire thing. Now, she says she's a mom. She got 5 kids, whatever. She's in her, late 30s, 40s. I don't know what it is. So that's a lifetime of being told. A lifetime of being told that you can't get any justice. That everything you do is somehow justifiable. That anybody in your community that looks like you, that has the same skin tone as you, can get away with anything because you can call it self-defense. And you're outraged that it actually could face a murder trial for anything like this. She's been told, I don't even think it's her fault. She's been misled her entire life to not understand that justice is blind in this case. And it sure seems like it because the evidence was crystal clear. Not at all, right? But who was she misled by? Who misleads a lady like that, right? Seems to be well-spoken, seems to be a smart, intelligent lady. This is why I don't blame her. Her entire life in her community, she's been told that because of her skin color, she's a constant, permanent victim. That's what's been ingrained in the mindset of so many people in this country. They've told them, again, the focus, my target is always the media, telling them her entire life. I'll call it, let's say she's 40. 4 decades being told by everything she's ever consumed information-wise in her life that she's a professional victim. That nothing is her fault. That anything that anybody that looks like her can do is justified. You think I'm wrong? That's how you lead to this. What kind of people mislead a lady like that, though? Who? I can tell you, because there were so many cameras, a national story, a national case in this. There were so many cameras. Every single jackal in the world promoting themselves, all the reverends, calling for justice, and all these other organizations and all these other people are there trying to get some camera time. Like this guy, perfect example. They're always reverends. Why is that? What aren't reverends? I thought, like with MLK, it was to increase the peace, Let's quell all this. Let's stop all this violence. Let's stop this stuff. Not this guy. He just says anytime anybody in his community is convicted of something that obviously he did, all of a sudden it's a miscarriage of justice. Here's a jackal in front of the cameras. Check this guy out. This is the kind of person misleading the lady you just heard.
I speak on behalf of myself, Minister Dominique Alexander. I speak on behalf of myself as president of the Next Generation Action Network. The Next Generation Action Network wanted to respect this process, to be able to make sure that nobody said that the Next Generation Action Network obstructed this process, interfered in this process. But what this process did is shown that black lives do not matter in Collin County.
That's what misleads. By the way, how many times could he get the Next Generation Action Network, the name of his organization, in there? How many times could he say that? And, of course, getting his own name in there before the cameras, right? It's just a jackal. I mean, that's all it is. And there you go. Black kid can't get justice in this community. There was a trial. The defense witnesses fell apart. There was all kinds of evidence. There were witnesses there that saw the scene that told them exactly what it is. And all of a sudden, they turned it into a racial issue. Guys like that. The first lady I played for you, who said, what am I supposed to do? She's been misled by people like that who calls himself a reverend her entire life. That's what happens. That's how we get to this point. And it's inexcusable. It really is. But then you have this. Let's go to another one. It's not just the reverends. It's not just the ones on the scene in the protest outside the courthouse in Frisco. It's not just them. Then you have everybody who feels the need to chime in on this, which is understandable for talking heads like me, who's a podcaster, and everybody else in the news, and everybody else who does commentary, and everybody that pays attention to current events. Why would we have an elected representative in Texas stirring the pot even more? Well, let's go to that district in that area. Jasmine Crockett. Haven't heard from her in a while since she was kind of told to, tone everything down by the Democrats. But she was on some kind of interview. I don't think this is her own media outlet. I don't know what it is. Listen to an elected representative in the House of Representatives, a congresswoman, Jasmine Crockett. Why in the world does she even need to chime in on this and create more divide? Why? Again, go to the first lady. How does somebody like that, who's well-spoken and understood, get misled by somebody like Jasmine Crockett? This is exactly
if a 300-pound man is beating me, like on top of me and beating me down, I'm not limited to fist. I would argue that even the only time we go into things like people's hands being considered deadly weapons is typically like if they're a professional boxer or that kind of stuff. But I think by the time you start getting to like football player, good argument. Good freaking argument. We're not talking about like the golfers. We're talking about football players, right? Like this is what they are trained to do, is to inflict like serious.
I know it didn't seem like it. She's actually commenting on the verdict. I did what? I couldn't even play it. That's just, you listen to too much of her, your IQ will go down. That's how ridiculous she is. She makes the argument somehow implying, without saying it, of course, that Austin Metcalf, a kid under 200 pounds, there was a justification for that kid getting stabbed to death because he's a football player? I mean, you connect the dots. Is that what she's saying there? Again, I'll go back to, why does she even need to pipe in on this? Why? Why do it? Even all of your media sources, all of the networks that have propped her up until recently, propped her up, gave her every interview, gave her all the airtime she possibly wanted. Even they're backing down off of this. They thought until the witness testimony all fell apart and the defense case fell apart in this, they thought there was going to be, we're going to be able to cover some juicy riots, right? Again, I'll go back to this. I don't think they are. I don't think this time, because they don't have the media support. And that's the good news of a tragic situation, right? I mean, justice prevailed. That seemed to be clear. At least it was to the jury in that community, for sure. And Austin Metcalf's family and Karrmelo Anthony's mother was calling for, mercy or whatever. This Austin Metcalf kid didn't get any. None. Why? Because he's white? So that's why this turned into a black-white thing? It never should have. We're still not at a point where we can make the wheels of justice roll on just blindly. Like, apparently we're not there. But I think, again, by the time you watch this later on in a replay or hear it, maybe there are riots. I hope not, but I don't think so. Because the media is not behind this one. They see this as a slam dunk, open and shut case for the prosecution, and they did. And they did find justice here. And that happened when the defense argument fell apart in this trial. That's when it all fell apart for them. That's why I wouldn't expect this whole thing. And that's good. That's a good thing that we're not going to. Last thing we need anywhere in our country right now are more riots. And this was a big national case. Even though it wasn't top of mind for you and it wasn't in your news feed too much, big case, big media attention. But that media attention is going to be going away because there's not much else to say about it. It'll carry on. This news just broke yesterday, so it'll carry on through this morning, today, this afternoon, on Wednesday in real time, and tonight a little bit. But that's about it, because there's no other controversy that your favorite media outlets can create over this. That's why I don't think there's going to be riots in this, and that's a good thing, despite what they tried to do to divide. Unbelievable. Well, let's hope for better news tomorrow, and there will be. I promise you. But let's get into it. I got stuff to do, so do you. Let's get out of here. I'm out of material. Thanks for finding a Wicked Radio live stream podcast, 8 a.m. Eastern Time, live on X, YouTube, and Facebook, but then the replay on there as well. But the audio podcast posted just after we get off here every single day. Appreciate you for being there so much. The like, follows, and all that other good stuff. Make it a wicked awesome Wednesday. Hopefully lighter stuff to talk about tomorrow, and I think there will be. I'll talk to you later.